O great dragon of starlight!
What do you want?
What does your graciousness bestow upon me today?
How about nothing?
What?
You kill me all the time.
But you're supposed to reward me for doing that.
Well, maybe I don't want to die.
Okay, well, let's try the opposite then.
The opposite?
What do you bestow on me so that I won't kill you?
Oh, that's easy. Do you like flying?
Flying? Ladies, gentlemen, and monsters of all ages, today is finally the day where we deliver something that you may never have thought would come from this channel, an insect glaive build, and not just any insect glaive build, but an aerial insect glaive build that actually does super reasonable damage.
I feel like I'm taking crazy pills!
And this is the build I've been looking for, ladies and gentlemen, the build that actually makes aerial feel viable in Master Rank, while also legitimately boosting the strengths of the aerial combat style itself. And of course, my first thought was, well, I know other people like helicopters, so why not share it with you? So today, my gorgeous little gardenias, I present to you a little build that I like to call Air Force Fun, the fantastic air-filled insect glaive set. Starting off with why this build exists, followed by what the build itself actually is, and then the playstyle to adopt while using this build. As for the why, well, do you like the idea of being a helicopter? I know, it wouldn't be great to have a cold metal exterior, a gas tank that's usually full, or be operated by a pilot whenever they want. But what if you could have all the best parts of being a helicopter with none of the downsides? Well, today is your lucky day, because Aerial Insect Glaive is here to enter your life with a fantastic and viable set. Sure, of course, this won't do quite as much straight up damage as playing ground insect glaive with a similar set, but you are far more agile and safer playing this way as well. So when the damage is comparable enough to still kill monsters within quest timers, it still is an entirely viable way of playing the game. And let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, this thing is absolutely capable of doing that. It is a killing machine and a powerful regeneration tool with a ton of stamina and dodging ability on top of it all. With Rocksteady on, you are pretty damn hard to kill as long as you're playing correctly. And with Temporal Mantle on, you are free to fly through the air, endlessly comboing to your heart's content. This build is easy to use, fun to use, and safe to use, as long as you remember when the objective of your investigation is to capture. Moving on to the build itself then, we are going to be working mostly around a couple of key skills here that interact with the rest of the build in particularly interesting ways. The two main ones being set bonuses, as you may expect, but which ones are where it gets interesting? Today, we'll be running the 3-set Safi'jiiva bonus for an attack and affinity bonus while our weapon is drawn, which has a secondary effect I'll talk about in a moment, along with the Zinogre 3-set bonus of Latent Power Secret, which allows you to reach level 7 Latent Power, which activates far easier than the lower ranks, as well as giving you a 50% stamina use reduction and a 60% affinity bonus. So, you know, it's pretty good if you have a consistent way to activate it, especially with a weapon like Aerial Insect Glaive, where your main gameplay uses tons and tons of stamina. Enter the secondary effect of the Safi'jiiva 3-set bonus. Every attack you do damages you slightly until you hit the monster a set number of times without sheathing, at which point you get a sizable heal. For the Insect Glaive, the number of hits required is 10, which just happens to equate to about 1.5 of your aerial helicopter combos. Latent Power is generally considered bad because it requires you to take damage to activate, and purposefully getting hit by endgame monsters is just ridiculous and not going to end well. And if you are playing well, you don't want to get accidentally hit in the first place either. However, the Safi bonus triggers Latent Power, and therefore using these two together creates a fantastic synergy for a weapon like Insect Glaive, especially as Aerial doesn't really focus parts all that well, so Weakness Exploit isn't all that ideal. What really pushes this synergy a little bit further though is Resentment, which buffs your attack if you have red health when the attack hits the monster, and a health regen augment.
Wait a minute!
Yes, I know, health regen augment and resentment directly work against each other. Usually. However, the Safi set bonus has a neat little trick in it that makes this all work. The Safi set bonus takes health away when you swing the weapon, not when you hit the monster, meaning that because of the order of operations in this case, you get resentment active on every single hit, no matter what. Even if the health regen augment heals you for more than the Safi set bonus takes, resentment still works every time. As for the actual pieces of this set, starting off with the weapon itself, there are actually a couple of answers to this, but they both boil down to Safi'jiiva insect glaives. If you only care enough about this set to upgrade one weapon, only one insect glaive, then the best one to do is the blast one, the Shatter Spear, as it is the best all-rounder. However, the ideal choice overall is to upgrade each elemental insect glaive and use whichever one best lines up with your target, like Fire for Velkhana or Ice for RageGamingVideos.
Only the Avatar, master of all 4 elements, could stop them.
However, no matter which one you are upgrading, the upgrades are still all the same. Zinogre Essence to count as 1 piece towards the Zinogre set bonus, Sharpness 6 and Sharpness 5 to give us a decent little chunk of purple sharpness, and 2 attack 5s to just boost our attack a little bit. Your augments are 1 health regen and 1 attack, as 1 health regen is just super nice and comfortable to have at all times, and the attack augment perfectly fits the remaining slots. As far as the equipment itself goes then, we of course have our 3 pieces of Safi and then 2 pieces of Stitch in Zinogre armor, as the skills on it are much better than regular Zinogre's armor, and then we are using the Challenger Charm to give us a ton of Agitator, as it's just a fantastic offensive skill in Iceborne that also provides a small amount of affinity for us. Filling in the decorations then, you can see the remaining skills required to make this build particularly effective, and as a whole we wind up with 7 latent power for a 50% stamina reduction and 60% affinity boost while active, 5 Agitator for a chunk of attack and 10% affinity when the monster is enraged, 4 attack boost for a chunk of attack as well as another 5% affinity, which on top of the 10% base affinity on the Safi'jiiva insect glaive and then the 20% affinity from the Safi'jiiva 3-set bonus, leaves us with 105% total affinity when the monster is enraged, and we have latent power active, which we will most of the time. 4 resentment for a ton of extra attack in the context of this build, 3 health boost because high-end monsters are just silly to fight without it honestly, 3 critical boost as we have high enough affinity to truly benefit from higher damage crits, 2 speed sharpening to, well, speed up our sharpening.
Did I stutter?
Especially as we are using protective polish to allow us to spin our weapon around at 1,000,000 miles an hour without losing purple sharpness for a short period of time. Airborne, as it increases the damage of our jump attacks by 30%, which of course affects all aerial attacks with Insect Glaive, as vaulting yourself into the air counts as the beginning of a jump attack. And then we have 2 blight resistance, 1 earplugs, and 1 tremor resistance just as a bonus from our choices of armor pieces. And then in the Rocksteady Mantle we have the final point of blight resistance just because we can, and then attack jewels in the remaining mantle slots. Now, as usual, my decoration collection isn't quite perfect, and in an ideal world you would have a second Furrer Plus jewel to go into the 4 slot in the arms, and a second Grinder / attack jewel to go in the 4 slot in your waist, finishing off the 5th rank of resentment and 3rd rank of speed sharpening respectively. As far as mantles go, Rocksteady is about as good as it always is good, but with an extra little bit of goodness due to the regen and evasion capabilities of this build. It's hard to get hit by 2 attacks in a row while helicoptering through the sky, so the negatives of not getting flinched aren't really a factor with this. And then second, of course, is Temporal Mantle. This is one of the best mantles for any weapon you could possibly use, but even more so for aerial Insect Glaive, as if Temporal Mantle triggers while you are in the air, it simply dodges the attack without interrupting your combos or other animations, allowing you to essentially use it as a Rocksteady Mantle without taking any sort of damage while it is active.
That's ridiculous.
As far as the playstyle in this build, you are of course still held accountable by the insect management part of the glaive, so you still have to get your red, white, and orange buffs by sending your bug to get extracts from the monster's parts before you can go full spin cycle on the monster's ass. And ideally, you also boost your Kinsect by melding them with some slinger ammo as well. Once this is met, your main gameplay cycle is vault into the sky and use the bouncy spin combo over and over and over on the monster, engaging in a near endless and relentless assault for as long as your stamina allows, basically only using the 1 attack button and your dodge button to reposition. And then if you do have to come down for a landing, the best attack you finish off with is always your aerial right trigger move, the new one in Iceborne, that stabs through the monster for a combo with your Kinsect. And spamming that move is actually the best damage against a downed monster that still technically counts as aerial fighting as well, so that is a consideration. It is also worth noting that you can and probably should use dash juice while using the Insect Glaive, but because of our massive amounts of latent power, it's not really necessary with this build. You can pretty much hit the limits of what Insect Glaive can do aerially with just the latent power active, but dash juice is just a little bonus thing that you can always have as a part of this set and always use to just give yourself a bonus, so it's worth considering, that's all. Especially as for the most part, your life using this build will just be flying around spinning at the monster, and above all else, make sure you actually hit the monster. The one caveat to this build is that you are using the Safi'jiiva set bonus, and as mentioned earlier, the self-damage from the set bonus is applied when you swing the weapon, not when you hit, which means that swinging without hitting is pure self-damage with no benefit. And with Aerial Insect Glaive more than most, it is super easy to just chunk through your own health by missing a few circle combos in a row. So be careful. Time your hits correctly when the monster is actually in front of you, and don't be afraid to drop out of the air for a nice heal every once in a while too if you need it. Sure, this build isn't quite perfect, it isn't quite immortal, and it isn't quite as much damage as Ground Insect Glaive, but it is a fun, safe, viable way to play Aerial Insect Glaive that actually feels good to use to me. And honestly, at this point in Iceborne, I wasn't sure I'd find that, but I have, and now you have too. Alright everyone, I've been Cotton Dinosaur, and this has been the Air Force Fun Aerial Insect Glaive build. Did you like this build? What other build ideas would you like to see us mess around with next? Like if you liked the video, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet. This is the brand new outro to tell you all the things that you do that we love, so let's start with something simple and say, oh, we love your eyes when they're watching us play video games, when we make a bunch of jokes that are kinda lame, or when they gaze upon our failures as we try to kill the monsters or important news about the kingdom Animalia. Rage, Content, and Hollow are all here talking about the things you want to hear, so if you want to be the first to hear, like and subscribe and the bell and we'll cheer. Some of you are patrons even though we are all the noobs and you're the pros. There's nothing we can do to thank you. No, really, there's nothing we could possibly do. Goodbye.